Karma hits back at cheating wife. It was a Friday night at the City Lights dance hall, and I was already busy behind the bar. 3 little college students from St. Catherine's College were sitting at one end, trying to make my life even more difficult. They weren't bad customers. In fact, only the tall brunette was a real customer. The other 2 were underage. At least I would bet my license on that. Nevertheless, I continued to serve drinks to Bernadette, the brunette, and turned a blind eye to who she was handing them to. Let's face it, having 3 hot college girls partying in your bar was always good for business. I looked back at them. Okay. 2 hot college girls and another one, Grace, seemingly pretty but exceptionally well endowed. Good for business. How were they making my life difficult? Simple. They flirted nonstop. It was very distracting, especially a pretty easygoing blonde named Lacey. I realized they were just practicing, preparing for the flood of guys that would be coming here within the hour. Due to the fact that we were directly across the street from the battery factory, it was easy to tell when the second shift was ending. Even with the early crowd and additional distractions in the form of Lacey, I knew immediately when she walked in. It's hard to forget the person you planned to spend the rest of your life with, fell head over heels in love with, and married. It's also hard not to remember that someone ripped your heart out and stole your little girl. Yeah, you never forget people like that. She walked to the opposite end of the bar and took a seat away from the small group of girls. She was still attractive, though she looked like she'd been used. She was wearing a short top under a sheer blouse and jeans. It showed off her trim body and a small tattoo on her abs, which was a novelty. To me, at least. Except for the concerned look on her face, she seemed ready for an evening of dancing and fun. I immediately wondered if she was going to bring her date along. Surely she's not that stupid. I quickly curbed my anger. It had gotten me into more trouble than I cared to remember. As I caught my breath, I noticed that she had changed her hair again. She'd grown her hair long, closer to what it had been when we'd first gotten married. Gone was the short hair sticking out in all directions, the hairstyle she used to wear for him. I admit I was curious. I had only spoken to my ex-wife, Connie, a handful of times in the last 3 years. It had been 16 months since I had seen her or my daughter, Susie. My thoughts were brought back to the present by a syrupy, sweet voice. "Oh, TJ," sang out a pretty young blonde. "Yes, Lacey, what do you need?" "Besides a certain handsome bartender to show me a good time tonight?" Bernadette and Grace giggled. "Lacey," I said, giving her my full attention, "you know, Maury isn't here yet." The stunned look on her face caused her friends to burst out laughing. I chuckled at the thought of her with my shift bartender closing the bar. Maury was a 173-centimeter, 68-pound bully cowboy in his early 50s. He was indeed a cowboy, as he ranched during the day and worked at the bar at night. My smirk turned into a grin as I watched her discomfort. Obviously, she wasn't referring to this bartender. I watched the joy disappear from her face as she started to get embarrassed. "Come on, Lace," I said, adding my hillbilly speak. "You know a night with you will ruin me for all the other women." It was as if a switch had flicked and life had returned to her face. She gave me a huge smile. "Don't I know it? But what a night it would be," she said, trying to sound seductive. "Come on, Lace," Bernadette said, rolling her eyes. "Let's get a nice table. TJ, would you send a waitress?" "Sure, Bernie." Bernie and Grace started to walk over to an available table, and Lacey slowly slid down the bar until she was in front of me. She leaned forward, making sure her frilly blouse was open, exposing a deep valley of 2 young, lush breasts that were trying to break free. She smiled and watched me admire the view. "You know, TJ," she said in her most sultry voice, "I would really like to make this unforgettable. I'd love to rock your world." "Thank you, Lace," I replied in my most sincere voice. "But my world is just starting to calm down, and unless you're ready for a long-term commitment, I'll have to decline for now. Don't wait too long. My offer won't last forever. She leaned back from the bar, smiled, and winked. I noticed that she added a swagger to her gait as she hurried over to her friends. Another satisfied customer. I grinned to myself. I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Jacob Carlton. Jake or TJ to most people, Texas Jake to the few who know me as an aspiring country singer. My two business partners and I own City Lights Dance Hall and the Strobe Club in Brownwood's Town Square. We also own several sports bars in town. Not too bad for a 28-year-old country boy. Sure, I'm a minor partner, but I mostly run City Lights. Theodore Hawthorne, the group's chief financial backer, controls Strobe, and Martin "Buck" Caldwell, a former USC soccer star, runs the sports bars. Theodore Hawthorne sounds like an English professor or writer, and the funny thing is, Theo looks appropriate. He's in his 40s and looks like a bookworm, but thanks to his keen business sense, the Hawthorne name, and old money, he's the heart of our little partnership. I met Theo when I was bartending at the Hawthorne Hotel. It wasn't a very big bar. It mainly catered to hotel guests. If the guests wanted a real bar, they went a few doors down to O'Malley's Irish Pub. If they wanted clubbing, they went to the Strobe. Buck is a local celebrity and the face of our group. 30 years ago, he was the head runner at State University. I don't think there is a person in this state that he hasn't met. Thanks to Buck's name, Theo's money, and my newfound talent for day-to-day operations, we made a more than modest profit for the first 2 years. It's one of the few bright spots in my life since my divorce 3 years ago. We originally met Buck through his nephew, with whom I spent time at the Johnson County Correctional Facility. His nephew, Ricky, was serving a short sentence for drugs, and the reason I was there was now sitting at the end of my bar. "What are you drinking, Connie?" I asked, trying to contain my disgust. "The usual, please," she replied meekly. "Sorry, I'm out of rat poison. How about arsenic?" She paled slightly. I guess I'm not very good at hiding my feelings. "Mojito, please." I nodded, made her a drink, and set it in front of her. She took a sip and smiled weakly. "With mint, you didn't forget." "I remember a lot of things. Now what do you want?" "I need to talk to you. I wonder if you could spare a few minutes." "Connie, I'm working." "It's important, Jake." Typical Connie, I thought. Always about what she thinks is important. "You should have called," I said flatly. "Would you have answered?" "Probably not." I smirked, but then relented. "When my extra help arrives, I can take a little break." "Thank you," she said quietly. For the next half hour, until Maury and my extra waitresses showed up, I worked the bar again. Then I was brought back to Connie's table. I'll admit I was admiring her tight jeans and the tattoo on her stomach. Another new addition. She looked around the room and a slight smile appeared on her face. Once upon a time, I would have killed to see that face upon waking up. Now, kill sounded pretty good. "How's the singing career going?" she asked, ignoring my obvious stare. "It's hanging by a thread. I'm still doing a few gigs a month, but only locally. Talked to this guy who started his own label. His name is Ron Beck, and he was pretty candid with me." "He thinks you can be a success?" she said, smiling warmly. I couldn't tell if she was really interested or just being sarcastic. I didn't care what she thought, so it didn't matter. "Yes. He said I was good enough, but so were thousands of other guys. He told me to keep singing, but not to quit my day job." She looked around the bar again and nodded. "It sounds like your main job is going well." "Yeah, things are starting to pick up." "Now, why are you here?" I said, unable to hide a chuckle. "I'm hoping to right a wrong." I watched her carefully, trying to see if she was sincere or just another attempt to ruin my life. And then I realized that if I could tell, I wouldn't have been so dumbfounded when she dumped me. "What kind of mistake?" I asked, feeling the bile in my throat. The mistake that you slept with your ex-boyfriend at your sister's bachelorette party and flushed our 3-year marriage down the drain? Or the one that you cheated on me with that asshole for the entire next year before you stunned me with divorce papers, or maybe trapping me into attacking him that night? I smirked at that painful memory, a brief moment of revenge followed by years of pain. She and Big Bad Brad, her former schoolmate, had ambushed me here after my shift at the battery factory. They knew I came here after work to have a couple drinks with friends and relax. While my divorce was pending, those couple drinks usually turned into several. By the time they got there, I was pretty drunk. The assholes started abusing me almost as soon as they arrived. I realized later that they were trying to piss me off and give them ammunition to divorce me. I gave them weapons of mass destruction. Bad Brad seemed to think he was some kind of badass, and he was certainly much bigger and heavier than my 183 centimeters and 78 kilograms. I'm not sure if he was being stupid or just arrogant, but he was looking at Connie making some kind of smart-ass comment to me. I jumped on him and then started punching him. Was that a fair fight? Number. Was it fair when he trashed my life behind my back? My always faithful, soon-to-be ex-wife got involved and got punched in the face. Did I feel guilty? Yeah, a little, but not guilty enough to lose sleep over it. I was alternately kicking him in the balls and stomping on his face when a few of my friends finally pulled me off him. The damage had been done. Loverboy ended up spending the next couple months eating through a straw, and Connie had a broken nose. I think their injuries played a big part in Judge Knox's sentencing. Despite his sympathy, I got 6 months for aggravated assault. While I was in county jail, Connie got pretty much everything she wanted in the divorce. The only thing she wanted, but didn't get, was that I still had parental rights to our daughter. When I was released, I was in for 2 surprises. The first surprise wasn't a huge surprise, as it was a restraining order, but the second one almost knocked me out. I was accused of molesting my 4-year-old daughter. If it wasn't for the restraining order, I could have killed them. It took me a few months to legally sort through the garbage, but by then they had already set my little girl on me. When I was finally able to see Susie, she screamed in terror and ran away from me. Now I was a monster. The woman from Child Protective Services didn't even blink an eye when she terminated my parental rights. That was the last time I saw Susie and Connie. It took me another month to get the court to look deeper into the allegations. When they did, they determined that she had been coached. They did not practically reinstate me as a parent, but they did effectively ban Brad, now her new husband, from adopting Susie. I wish I could say it was a nightmare, but that's the kind of nightmare you wake up with. I had no choice but to start over as I had lost my wife and daughter, been laid off, and now had a fresh criminal record. I got a job at the Hawthorne Hotel, working the bar and taking the worst shifts, but in the last 2 years I had finally started to get my life together. Now here was Broomhilda, the Valkyrie from the epic. "What mistake are you hoping to right?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. "Well, as much as I can," she said, looking at me pleadingly with her pale green eyes. "But I was going to start with our daughter. She needs a good man in her life as a father." "What happened to Mr. Wonderful?" She lowered her gaze to her drink. "I thought you'd heard by now." I snorted. "Connie, I haven't heard from you or Susie in over a year. The few friends I had left after what you and that asshole did to me knew never to mention your name." She sighed, and I thought I saw a tear in her eyes. "Brad left me 6 months ago. He cleaned out all our accounts and left with some other woman." I couldn't help but laugh. "You mean your bad boy lover cheated on you, treated you like garbage, and dumped you? Classic. I know I deserve that." "No, you deserve to be burned at the stake with the other witches." "Jake, I'm so sorry. I can't even begin to ask you to forgive us. Forgive me. What I did was so cruel. It makes me sick to realize that I was a part of it." "So why were you then?" She looked at me in confusion. "Why were you a part of it?" She lowered her head and began to look at her shiny red fingernails passionately. I continued. I had no idea. I knew our marriage wasn't perfect, but I had no idea you were so miserable until that last year. I wasn't, Jake, she said in a soft, breaking voice. I wasn't that unhappy. Things were difficult because of our finances, but I knew things would get better, and I knew you were trying. My sister's bachelorette party was an escape for me from our daily problems. I didn't plan on being with Brad. It just happened. I snorted and started to say something, but she interrupted. I know. It doesn't excuse me, but I really didn't go there to cheat on you. After it happened, I knew you would never forgive me, and Brad made me feel special. I was so confused and confusing that year. I knew our marriage was over, but I couldn't let go. My guilt and mood swings were triggering your anger, and our home life was miserable. I became more and more dependent on Brad for my happiness. I soon realized that I had to do everything I could to ensure our happiness. That included finding a way for him, Susie, and I to become a family. Jake, I never wanted to hurt you any more than I already have. Brad was the one who wanted you out of our lives completely. I'm ashamed I went through with it. I never thought I could be such a heartless fool. I'm so sorry, Jake. Well, at least you can agree with that. She gave me a puzzled look. That you were a heartless fool. She recoiled slightly from my anger and fell silent. It was a mistake to come here, she finally whispered. You think? I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Okay, Connie, you're here. You said something about Susie and her needing a father. What did you mean by that? She looked around the dance hall, refusing to even look at me. When Brad left us destitute, Susie and I moved in with my mom. My sister and her husband moved to California. Now my mom has moved to Arizona. She met some guy online and moved away. The rent is paid through the end of this month, but I can't afford it on my own. She tilted her head again and stared into her glass. Jake, there's nothing keeping me here. I can find another accounting job just about anywhere, but it barely pays the bills. I have relatives in Philadelphia. I have contacted them, and they could use me to help with one of the family businesses. They also have a place where Susie and I can live. So you're taking my daughter to Philadelphia? I asked coldly. Yes, she replied weakly, and then slowly raised her eyes to me. Her eyes were pleading and filled with tears. I'm living like hell here, Jake. I have no reason to stay unless you can give me one. I fought the urge to lash out at her and remind her that it was all her own fault. But most of all, I fought the urge to keep my hope from festering. What my ex-wife was waving in front of me was my greatest hope for the past few years. So what are you saying, Connie? That now you want me to be involved in my daughter's life? Does she know that? Last time I saw her, she was terrified of me. I can start working on it, Jake. It'll take a little time, but I'm sure she'll come around. The fact that she never did anything to repair this relationship hasn't gone unnoticed by me. I might be a little slow sometimes, but... If you want, I suggested calmly, I can write a letter for you to read to her. I think that would only confuse her right now. Maybe when she's older. Jake, there's one condition, she said nervously. Okay, here it is. Susie and I are a package deal. I'll admit I was stunned. My first thoughts were not pleasant. I wondered if she was on drugs or if Brad had beaten her up, since she was clearly not mentally okay. I couldn't imagine how she could even dream of me taking her back after what she put me through. Thankfully, I managed to reply without gagging. What was that supposed to mean? She turned away and couldn't look me in the eyes anymore. I was relieved that she at least felt guilty about what she was offering. It means that you and I are going to have to work on having some kind of relationship. We had a relationship, but it wasn't enough for you. Our relationship right now is pretty simple. You tried to destroy me, and now I hate you." "I know," she said sadly, "and I don't blame you, but—" "There's always a but, isn't there? I can't subject Susie to that kind of relationship. Jake, you're going to have to let me try to make up for the hell I put you through." "And how are you going to do that?" "I was hoping that for starters we could be civil and actually treat each other well. After that, we could work on becoming friends, and then, after that—" "You've got to be kidding me," I said quietly, trying to keep my jaw from dropping to the table. "Look, Jake, I know I hurt you. I ruined what I want more than anything in the world now. I want our family back. I'm not stupid. I know it will take a long time, maybe even a lifetime, to make amends. But I'm willing to try. Please, just think about it." "So you're willing to give me my visitation rights back?" Her pause gave me all the answers I needed. I took a deep breath as my hatred for this cheating woman began to boil over. She looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes for the first time since I beat the crap out of Brad. My feelings were probably written all over my face. "So let me get this straight. In order to see my daughter, I have to let you back into my life. The more I bare my throat and heart to you, the more you can let me into Susie's life. I'll only be able to see my daughter when you're around, and that's assuming you can get her to talk to me again. And if by some miracle we become real father and daughter again, can you still just take her away from me if you're having a bad day? Of course, if you ever find another Brad, you'll both disappear overnight and I'll be out of luck." I stared at her, waiting for some sort of answer. She stared at me again, tears streaming down her face. "I know you don't trust me, but I promise I won't do this to you. I know what I've lost. I just need a chance to try to get some of it back." "You're right, Connie. I don't trust you. You only do what's good for you. You made the same promises when we were married, but that didn't stop you from cheating on me with Brad, did it? Damn it, now you're pimping out your own daughter so I'll take you back? That's pathetic, even for you." "Jake, I'm sorry, but I'm desperate," she shouted so loudly that I felt the stares of some of the people around us. I can't lose Susie," she sobbed softly. "She's all I have right now." I tried to make sense of it all, fighting the sickening feeling that if I didn't find some kind of solution, I wouldn't see my daughter again. At least not until she was 18. The problem was that there was no answer. Connie had made it clear that this was an all-or-nothing proposition, and even the all part could change. I knew I couldn't live like that, expecting her to take Susie away from me on a whim. It wouldn't be fair to Susie or to me. But it was also murderous to lose all hope. Sometimes God or fate or whatever you believe in smiles on you. It was as if a decision had been made that in the midst of a string of bad days, this day would be a good one. For me, it started with a little girl's voice echoing across the bar. "Uncle TJ!" Izzy, a cute 6-year-old girl with long black hair, jumped up to us. She was followed by her 4-year-old brother, a sturdy little pudgy boy who stomped across the bar floor in his new cowboy boots. I rose to my feet just in time to catch the girl as she threw herself into my arms. Her squeal pierced the country music that filled the room. I heard a few chuckles from neighboring tables. There's something infectious about a child's laughter, and I felt myself laughing along with her. I felt something hit my foot and looked down. Her little brother Gabe was resting his head on my leg, grimacing and snorting. Apparently, he thought he was a real bull today. Placing his sister on the floor, I picked up the baby bull and tickled him. He burst into laughter and I put him back down. As soon as his shoes hit the floor, he became a bull baby again. "Where's your mom?" "She's over there with Uncle Maury," Izzy chirped. I looked over and saw her. Her tanned skin, high cheekbones, and long, straight, ebony-colored hair spoke of her Native American ancestry. She had the body of a swimmer, lean and athletic. I grinned, looking at the way her ugliness was tightened by her jeans. But it was her dark, piercing eyes that caught my eye. From the way they looked at my ex-wife, I knew my Creole princess was not happy. How beautiful she is when she's jealous. We're going to Aunt Marie's to go swimming. Yes, I replied, smiling. Maybe I can join you after I get home from work. Mom said that you and her will go swimming after we go to bed, but I don't see the point. She didn't bring her swimsuit. I grinned. Well, maybe she can beg it from Aunt Marie. You! Both kids squealed. Uncle TJ and Mommy, and you could fit into Aunt Marie's bathing suit. Now that would be interesting, I said, grinning. You! The kids squealed again. Why don't you and little Sitting Bull ask Uncle Maury for one of his specialty strawberry shakes? My treat! Both kids applauded, and Gabe stepped out of character to wave his fist victoriously. I looked back at Connie and saw defeat in her eyes. We both had an answer. I've really let us down big time, haven't I, Jake? She whispered. Connie, if you ever have a soul, tell my daughter that her daddy loves her. He just couldn't go through all those obstacles and endure the hell his mom wanted to put him through. He saw her go pale, lowering her head. One piece of advice. Tell her the truth about you, Brad, and me. If you don't, she'll find out when she gets older, and she'll hate you even more than I do. With those words, I headed for the bar, knowing that I would never see my little girl again, at least not until she grew up. It was painful, but over the past 16 months, my heart had gotten used to it. As I approached, Josie wrapped her long arms around my neck and looked into my eyes. I could see the dark lights dancing dangerously in her eyes. Is that her? She whispered. I nodded. Are you okay? Yes, I am now. Good, she said, giving me a slight smile. For a minute, I thought I was going to have to go in there and kill that fool. I smiled. The thought had actually crossed my mind. What about that thought? Her soft lips dug into mine, our tongues dancing. You! Two small voices sounded. Gasping, we broke our loving embrace. I saw her eyes dart to something over my shoulder, and then a satisfied expression appeared on her ruggedly beautiful face. What was it? Not that I'm complaining. Just reminding you, lover, she said calmly, but I could see little evil thoughts dancing in her eyes. And I'm making a statement to anyone watching. You're mine. Did you get your point across? Josie smiled maliciously. Well, your ex-wife left in tears. But that bimbo blondie? Stacy? Lacey. I wonder what she'll look like when I shave her head. I suppressed a laugh. She looked me in the eye. And if you use the word scalping, our midnight swimsuit-free bathing session will end in a cold shower for you, Buster. I smiled at her, realizing I'd really moved on. I was finally ready to dance again. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.